I like the arrangement of the elements in this shrine at the altar. Look at that. You have the statue of the Santo Niño, and as you pan your eyes, you are led to the cross, and further to the left, still panning your eyes, you are led to the tabernacle. Why do I like the arrangement? Because it marks the history of salvation. We have there child born in a manger. He was naked, but we clothed him like a king, because we recognize that the child born in a manger is a priest, prophet, and king. Then that child will not remain a child. He will grow up and make demands. If you want to follow me, deny yourself, take up your cross, and follow me. It's difficult, but he shows us how to do it. He carried his cross, died on it, not for himself, but for all of us. We feel sad that he died and he left us, but if you pan to the left and to the tabernacle, you're filled with hope and joy that his death did not end in defeat, but it went through the resurrection and granted us triumph and victory over death. Therefore, my dear brothers and sisters, the sinulog cannot be a celebration divorced from the rest of history. We have to celebrate sinulog in the totality of the history of salvation. That the child that we clasp during the sinulog has demands. Deny yourself, take up your cross, and follow me. But then, draw hope from the tabernacle with his promise, I will be with you until the end of time. But now, since it is sinulog, I pan back to the right, from the tabernacle to the cross and to the Santo Niño, because we are invited to draw lessons from this child if we want our sinulog celebration to be meaningful. Let me follow the syllabus PIT in the word Pit Senyor. My homily will be 3 points, P-I-T. But before that, let us explore first what's the meaning of Pit Senyor. What's the meaning of Pit Senyor? Yeah, they say it is sangpit, but I found it unreasonable that it should be sangpit Senyor, because you're not writing a thesis. You're not writing an article that you should put a title of what you do. When you sangpit, butangan pa di ag title nga sangpit na niha. Sangpit din ko kang lulok kini. It's unreasonable because it's not a book. It's not an article. It's not something written. It's verbal. And when you verbalize what you do not put a title to what you do. Muadto ka sa merkado ay ginap. Ug karon, muadto ko sa merkado. Nilakaw na ko. Oops, mulaban ko sa daan. Ug niadto na ko sa merkado, ano drama na ka. Muadto ka sa merkado, diretso ka sa merkado. Mupalit ka sa tindahan, di ka moingon. Ug karon, manuktok na ko ug mupalit sa tindahan. Aniya, nang papalit akong suka, wa na tong intro. Uy, diretso na kayong palit akong suka. Ayo, palit akong suka. Di na butang ag title. So why would you say sangpit Senyor? And then mo sangpit ka. So I said that must not be the meaning of Pit Senyor. So I made my research and I found a very old lady, and I asked the lady, what is the meaning of Pit Senyor? And she gave me a very amusing explanation. She said that in days past, when they just began the sinulog, because of the panaad, they would come to Cebu on the feast of the Santo Niño, and they would take a bus. Buses in those days where our buses now are modern and we have more buses, but there were few buses before, and they will be cramped in one bus with one door each. Each bench in the bus would have its own door. Many people hanging on by the doors on one side of the bus. And she said, because on the Fiesta de Santo Niño, many would be going to the city because of the devotees, maipit sila. So when they go to the Santo Niño, in a bid to touch the heart of Santo Niño into granting the request, they would say, "Naipit mi Senyor kang lulu kini. Naipit mi Senyor kang lola kini. Naipit mi Senyor kang sa among negosyo kini. Naipit mi Senyor." And I found it amusing, and it sounds logical that would be. And I like the meaning better this way because it puts in the element of sacrifice. It puts in the element of hardships, which we offer to the Santo Niño, and we unite our sacrifice with the sacrifice at the Mass, and then we make our Mass during the Novena and the Fiesta more meaningful because we have chipped in to the sacrifice of Jesus Christ on the cross, and we link the Santo Niño to the sacrificial element on the cross, and hopefully there His promise, "I will be with you until the end of time." Let us now go to the three elements of the homily, PIT, P-I-T, so that we can learn from the child. P, perspective. The child has a different perspective. The child has a different way of seeing things. That's why Jesus invites us, unless you become like little children, you will not enter the kingdom of God. Sometimes we see things too complicated, and we do not see things within the lens, from the lens and point of view of morality, and from point of view of Christian teaching. We see things from the point of view of convenience and practicality, so much so that we easily set aside our faith. I stands for internal simplicity of a child. The child has interiority. The child has internal simplicity to give and receive tenderness, and that's the reason why we are all attracted to babies and to a child. They will always be attractive to adults because of that interior simplicity. Because in that interior simplicity, they are capable of accepting tenderness and giving tenderness. They project tenderness, and they are capable of receiving so much tenderness that if you hug them, they won't mind it. Ikadako, gaksa, di ba, masumbagan ka. Kugusa, di ba? Di na makugos ang dako eh. Di na. That's why, where your children are still capable of receiving tenderness, hug them, be with them, love them, caress them, ikuyog sa misa, asamo kay padre, ikuyog kay ikadako, lain ay kuyugan ana. So, well, they're still capable of receiving tenderness, fill them with tenderness so that when they grow up and it is time to give tenderness, then they have stocks of tenderness in their heart. Because a child unloved at childhood, bati kay batasan ikadako, dili tender, dili ta happy to be with. So, children have interiority, making them capable of receiving tenderness and giving tenderness, and this is crucial to the command of charity. Our marching order is love one another as I have loved you. If you don't have that childhood interiority, capable of giving tenderness and receiving tenderness, then loving one another becomes very, very hard teaching for you. My dear brothers and sisters, how is your interiority? Do you still have the interiority of the child? At night, go to bed, visit your inner sanctum. What do you find? Do you find bottomless thirst for material things? If you do, then woe to you. You'll spend all your life looking and working for money, and in the end, you cannot even take a centavo with you. And in the end, you will realize that the others who didn't work for your money will squander it in one day. So, find meaning in life. Visit your heart. Have that interiority of simplicity so that, like Synthurus, you would say, Solo Diyos basta. God is more than enough. If asked to choose between these things and God, I would go for God, my fundamental option. Last letter for Pit or Sang Pit or Piit is trust. Children have so much trust in their parents, father and mother. You know, the classic story of a child, the classic story of a driver driving through Manipis. Manipis is a dangerous road in the south. In the north, we used to have the IMI. Now it's widened. But when we were kids, going home to Danbantayan, passing the IMI, we would pray. The story goes like this. The father was driving, and the father was a bus driver, and he was driving very fast, and all the passengers were already making the signs of the cross and praying and shouting, "Hey, drive slow!" But the driver drove fast because he was catching time for the next trip, and everybody scared except the child in the front seat. He was enjoying, and when asked, "Why are you enjoying when all passengers are in fear?" And he said, "That's my dad." Pointing to the driver. See, the trust of the child that the father will never do anything to his peril. And that is the trust that God would like us to have in Him. In Cebuano, I like the word salig. Salig is also a portmanteau of sandig, ligon. Sandig, ligon. Nisandig ka sa ligon. Musandig gani kag ligon nga tawa kay kahadlukan. Nga naman, you're safe. Pero musandig gani kag apiki, magpangulba ka oy nya, naibungaw dito, mahug ka. You are not at ease. You are not. Pero so salig is essentially you are at ease. You feel secure because you lean on somebody or on something very, very strong, and you know it's very, very strong. That's why the trust that we are called to in terms of God is that concept of salig. The concept of salig. You trust in God because you know that God is your firm foundation. My dear brothers and sisters, when you look at the Holy Eucharist and happy because of God's promise, I will be with you until the end of time, remember that kind of security invites you to look back. Look back to the cross. Are you willing to do the demands? Deny yourself, take up your cross, and follow me. And then look back to the Santo Niño. Are you willing to have the characteristic of a child? And we pointed out 3. PIT, perspective of simplicity, interiority, and trust. Because mind you, He says in today's gospel, unless you become like little children, you will not enter the kingdom of God. Pit Senyor.